Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away.
I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away.
When the shadows of this life have gone, I'll fly away. Like a bird from these prison bars, I'll fly. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll
Fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away.
Oh, how glad and happy when we meet. Oh, I'll fly away. No more cold iron shackles on my feet. Oh, I'll fly away. Oh, I'll
Fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away.
Everybody. Oh,
I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll
fly away. Oh, when I die.
Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away.
Oh, when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for coming to my birthday bash and celebration of Fairfield's success. All right. So the idea that I had in my mind was, it's really, really important when you're good at something to recognize that and to celebrate it. That is the only way we actually get better. My buddy Lou Tice, who I taught his program for years and years, he said most people pass through their successes too quickly and too lightly to assimilate them. so they don't develop that internal picture of themselves in a state of success. So he said, I'm here to tell you, you got to wallow around in your success like a pig in mud. And so that's exactly what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to be doing some serious wallowing. And what I thought we would do is I'd bring quite a few of my friends, just to give a little 5-minute overview of what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're excited about, what their vision is. I'm very, very honored tonight to have with us Mayor Connie Boyer.
It's my pleasure to introduce you to my youngest granddaughter out of 5, and I call her the boss of the family because she can get the whole family to do pretty much anything, right? Yep. So anyway, Bob asked me to kind of just share what's happening from the city level and a part of what I see and hope that transpires over the next many years for Fairfield. But let me tell you a few things that are in the works right now. And some things that have been happening over summer. Of course, everyone knows the Fairfield Garden Initiative has been amazing. Thank you, Faith, and all the people who have been involved in that, and Bob. It's just been a great success. Right now, we just appointed a housing task force. Starting in October, we're going to be doing a little study on housing. I'm really excited about what that's going to bring, and it's going to be an interactive situation with that housing task force. It's going to be done a little different than normal, so that's going to be exciting. We're also doing a hotel study. As you know, we're down to 2 hotels instead of 3, and so hopefully that will bring fruition. Over the last year, we've had some challenges as a community, and community members have gotten together, and this is just kind of an organic thing that happened of community members who raised their hand and said, what can we do to help fill in gaps for our community, particularly for our students, and also adults that need more support in the mental health area. So there's been about anywhere from a dozen to maybe 20 people working on this since last November. We are now calling ourselves Jefferson County Mental Health and Wellness Alliance. So you'll hear more about that. We did a little strategic plan and trying to determine where our holes are and where we can help the community. So that will be coming out soon. We've been working on a Great Places grant. There were some grants that came out that we really looked at and decided we weren't in the position to do those grants through the state. One of them turned out to be, you need to be a $5 million project, and we didn't have any $5 million projects right now, so we decided to turn to our Great Places grant, and we'll be talking a little bit about it Monday night at City Hall. Hopefully get the support of the council, and there's some really exciting things I think coming out with that if we can get that grant. The Fairfield Volunteer Center, they've been quietly working, but it's interesting. I don't know if y'all know Chad Starling, who's an amazing artist. He went to the Volunteer Center after the Volunteer Center and the Cultural Alliance got together and did these signs for the parks to keep trash in the garbage bins. And he went to the Volunteer Center and he says, I got this project. I've been thinking about it for a long time. He did some renderings, and hopefully that's going to take off. And it basically is, if you know his artwork, he wants to do the big pillars down 2nd Street of the overpass. And it's going to be really cool if we can get that done. You may have heard of Fairfield Cares, Jennifer Hamilton. She's got a whole group of volunteers trying to help people in their older years with things that they need. That's so exciting to watch that happen. We have a new city code enforcement officer at the city level, and please treat him as your friend, because we really, as a community, want to upgrade and uplift our community, and he's helping us do that by being more proactive and educating people on what the codes are, and trying to be supportive to help get some of those things done that are lacking. Fire station, those bids should come out this fall, and then hopefully start next year. Highway 1 South will have a new path, a new highway, and also it's 8 or 10 feet wide, part of the trail system to get out on the trail system, and so you don't have to be along that shoulder or walk on the highway where it's a little dangerous. So there'll be a safe walking path on the south side out to the trail. Yes. Yep. Out towards the community health center. Yep. Yep. This last year, we did a maintenance plan for Lamson Woods, which was really cool. And also this summer, we're doing a sidewalk review. But quickly, as far as vision for Fairfield, I just want to touch on a few things. And I really hope that through this Great Places grant and some of the other things that are actually being done privately, and through some other things that, will really have a revitalization of our downtown. COVID's been hard on a lot of communities, and it's been hard for us too. So let's really put our attention on that, and hopefully that will start to look a lot better over the next couple years. I'm hoping that at some point here at the city level, we have some hybrid vehicles. There seems to me no reason why we shouldn't have at least one or two in our fleet. I have found out that as far as a police car that's hybrid or electric, it's a little more challenging because of the way they equip the cars. And of course, Tesla is one of the cars that we think of as far as hybrid or electric. And apparently they don't do what some of the other engine cars do to give some brakes and get those cars equipped. But hopefully that will get easier over time. I'm hoping that at some point we have a section of town, little community of small homes. I've got a couple places in mind that I'm not going to share, but because I think there are people that that don't want a conventional house. 300-400 square feet is good enough, and that's fine. So I'm hoping that can take place. I already mentioned kind of cleaning up and tidying up our town, helping our neighborhoods, and having more neighborly neighbors, if you will, where people find out, where your neighbors' challenges are, so that you can help them when they need help. I'd like to see everybody plant 1 tree per year, every household. And if you can plant 3 or 4, go for it. But if we did that over the next 10 years, we would roll back like 10 years worth of greenhouse gas emissions or something like that. I can't remember if that's exactly the right statistic, but make them nut trees, all right. Okay, that's from Faith. Make them nut trees so we can feed everybody and the squirrels. That's what they do in my yard. Diverse bicycle recreation. There's a grant that just went in to do mountain biking out at Woodham Woods. I was just up in Minnesota, and this little town that we stayed in, which was near Brainerd, it's about 14 miles from Brainerd. Brainerd has all this activity, it's a bigger town, but we were in this little town because I found it on Airbnb, and they are bicycle heaven up there because of all the lakes and all the different places. So it was really cool. I'd like to see a bank loan program, so I'm going to have to ask the banks to get together and provide, I'm hoping they'll provide a little bit lower interest rates for if you want to put solar on your house. I'd like to see them do that, make it a little bit easier and help us educate our community on how they can do that. A good grant writing team. So if you want to be involved in grant writing, let me know. And the last thing I'm going to mention is endowing our foundations through education and estate planning. So let me just give a good example, and that is the Fairfield Public Library has an endowment, and I don't know really what the value is right now, but the last I knew it was around $2 million. And I would say 20 years ago, when budgets were really tight at the city level, we were not able to give them as much money for supplies. And that steadily has gone down because budgets at the city level have been tighter. Meanwhile, that foundation, through the good works of our community who have given more and more money, they've done a lot of projects through that foundation. And it's made a huge impact for our community in supplies, programming, equipment at the library. If they did not have that foundation, the library would be a much different place. And so it's important, in my view, to say, listen, we need to fully endow our civic center, our museum, our education foundation to help our teachers. That museum is a wealth of information there. Sorry, Bob, I know I'm taking more than 5 minutes. And our civic center, because the civic center, Fairfield Arts and Convention Center, and particularly museum, those are two city-connected, facilities. We own those buildings, and that just takes, if those are fully endowed, it takes more pressure off city. Okay? So I always say, as you estate plan, a lot of families want to give what I have left to their children or their grandchildren. Great, fine, but they're probably not going to miss 1 or 2% of your estate or whatever amount you want to give. So you're not getting it all, Corinne, sorry. So as you're planning your wills, your estates, if you can just tweak out a little bit for a foundation that you love. I've only mentioned a few. I forgot Greater Jefferson County Foundation, which is our big foundation overall. And that's been growing for 50 years. It's had such an impact for our students, scholarships. Anyway, so I'm just encouraging to build those and over time, and let your friends and neighbors know that how impactful that can be over time. So thanks, Bob. Happy birthday. Wish you many blessings. And thank you so much for the rain.
I'm particularly delighted to bring Rachel Hillier up, who is our brand new Fairfield Sustainability Coordinator, fully funded for 3 years. So Rachel, come up and give us a little vision.
Hi. Thanks, Bob. That was a really nice introduction. And thanks, Connie. That was a great overview of what's going on in Fairfield. And I'm finding out as sustainability coordinator, I'm a unique. I don't belong to a city or a university or a county. I belong to a community. And this position has been funded in part by the city of Fairfield and by the university, Maharishi University, and also the community in like a third, roughly. Anyway, that puts me in a really unique position to be able to kind of look at some of the opportunities that may just come for the city and figure out ways that the city can work better with the community. So there's a lot of active nonprofit organizations and community organizations here who've done a lot of really great work already. And two Saturdays ago, we were able to get together in the name of something called the Resilient Iowa Communities. It's a pilot project the city is basically participating in. And as a municipality, they're able to kind of coordinate or figure out what's going on with other small communities. There's like Mount Vernon, who I just talked to recently, then Lynn County, Decatur, yeah, I think. Anyway, there's a couple other ones. Anyway, but the fun thing about that is all the sustainability coordinators from all over the state are working on this thing called Resilient Iowa Communities. Well, one of the things that I'm looking at, some of the things that they're asking about, and wondering like how does a community like ours, with a lot of active people, with a lot of great ideas and a lot of, initiatives, work within that kind of a construct. And since we're a pilot project, they get to talk to me about how do we cooperate better with the community, and hopefully form this. One of the things that happens a lot is that you have a government kind of a grant, or you have a university grant, and then they have these kind of overreaching best practices, and they're usually for large things, large cities, large farms, large everything. And then they're like, well, why don't we just make it smaller? You know, for example, I always complain about the USDA coming to talk to the small farms, and they say, well, don't you just need a smaller tractor and a smaller loan? No, we need a lot different help. And it's like two different species. So it's the same thing with large municipalities and small municipalities. We don't have the same issues that a big city has, but we also have different issues, and that we also have to figure out how to integrate our community into the kind of what the government's doing. We're never going to have like a well-funded, powerhouse government that's going to basically pay for every service we need. So what's happened is the community stepped in and kind of created those social safety nets and the recycling programs and the solar initiatives and all the things that we really love in a sustainable community. And the other thing is we talk about resilience, and that COVID really brought out a lot of gaps that we noticed as a community, like how resilient are we to change, not just climate change, but societal change, supply chain issues, or the need to do more local, relying on local goods and farm, on food and all that kind of thing, and our water and our waste. So, and there's so much information, so much energy here moving forward with people to get together and do something. And I think that as a sustainability coordinator, I'm in a really unique position to be able to kind of look and see what people are doing and kind of just get in everybody's business a little bit and maybe put things together in a way that's going to be really, really fun and useful. And then have a good dialogue with the community, and then inform the city. What policies do we want? What kind of ordinances are going to be most useful? And so, thank you.
I have the privilege of being an honorary board member of the Sierra Club. I sit in on the meetings, represent the SLC here. And by the way, I didn't even mention that I am the executive director of the Sustainable Living Coalition, which sponsors this beautiful eco barn. Sarah is doing some fantastic work with the Sierra Club and also with the Pop Festival, and she is here to tell us about it. And she is a high school student. Sarah.
Hello, everyone. So like Bob was saying, students from Maharishi School, FHS, and Maharishi University have been working on hosting a sort of climate festival in hopes to educate, inspire, and take initiative in climate change in Fairfield. Because I think a lot of the things is that we see the same group of students working on taking initiatives and in climate change, and I don't think that's because people don't care or want to. I think that's because a lot of people just don't know enough about the situation, as well as feel like they can make an impact or that they have enough skills or opportunities to do so. So from this festival, we hope to get more people to help us on the front line to take initiative and take action. And actually part of the festival is that we want to make a climate plan for FHS and Maharishi School, which would include incorporating more sustainable education in the classes. So yeah, that's what we've been working on, and we hope to have a climate festival in the next 2 months.
We're very proud of what Jocelyn and Tim are doing. They run Pickle Creek Herbs, and I am the proud owner of a beautiful bottle of vinegar. And looking at economic development in perhaps a somewhat non-traditional way, looking at economic development particularly through the lens of local self-sufficiency and being able to feed ourselves. 100 years ago, 90% of the food we ate was in-state, now 5 or 10%. And so tell us a little bit about what you're doing, Jocelyn.
So I am Jocelyn of Tim and Jocelyn. We run Pickle Creek Herbs. Tim and I used to be chemists, and then we inherited a farm, and so we ended up doing what we do today through this kind of roundabout journey. In 2004, we started growing produce, and so we said, well, do this for 5 years, and we'll see if we last. And that was, that was '04, so that was almost 20 years ago now. And so we started out growing produce, and back then in '04, it was a great growing year. '05 was drought. Gas prices were at $4 a gallon, which back then, before inflation, was a lot. And we were doing farmers markets, and we were doing a CSA, and we said we've got to do something where we fit more into the niche of where we are, because we were growing produce, but we didn't have like the reach to get it out to people who really wanted what we were doing. We were certified organic, and there were a lot of other great growers. So we said we're gonna do something to really make this a niche thing. And so we went the value added route. So we started growing herbs and garlic and tomatoes and peppers, and now we do herb infused olive oils and vinegars and soap salves and balms. And we were just in the Source, the Iowa Source. There's an article about our farm. And so Meredith wrote it, and she really got me to talk and say things I maybe wouldn't have said. So anyway, it's a good read. Oh yeah, you know what? Tim can pull it up. Yeah, so I guess if I would say, if you want to have a farm, start small and grow organically, and be open to learning and see where it takes you, and be stubborn, like all good Iowa farm folk are. And that would be my advice for keeping at it. Today we do value added. We generally sell at 3 or 4 large farmers markets. Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Davenport are our big ones. We do big festivals around Iowa. We're in, I think, almost close to 100 stores now in Iowa, around the United States. We do online orders. Every day I'm packing some order. And so it's just the other thing that has really helped is to have multiple avenues, channels. That was especially useful in 2020 when, the event world shut down. So these are just some photos.
What's the estimate on the number of heads of garlic
In that photo, Tim? So
20,000?
this was, what, 12,000? Yes. 12,000 heads of garlic we harvested this year. And Tim, so over the years, he's really, kind of adapted, learned a lot about farming. Definitely it's good to have a community, get with a community of growers. You'll learn a lot of useful things. Be creative. There's a lot of room for creativity if you want to do farming, especially sustainable stuff. There's Harley and Quinn. They're a wildlife management program. Yeah, we grow basil. We've got high tunnels because some years it rains and rains and rains. We've got wells because some years it doesn't rain at all. That's just the farm. And this is the farm where I grew up, is north of town here. It's just more herbs, more. We grow berries. We do a lot of berry infused vinegar. So we process several hundred pounds of berries every year. Several hundred pounds of peppers every year go into our oil and stuff. Tim, I don't know how many thousands of basil plants he has right now, but I do know he has a 400-foot oregano row that once you start weeding, 300, is that what it was? No, it was like 800 feet, really, because...
Boxes are so well received, I must say, for family members who you have outside of Iowa. They are so appreciative, and then they continue to ask for them.
Yep, little piece of Iowa in every bottle. We like value added because it's, it's shelf stable. And then there's a major thing with when you're growing produce, and it's that people see it as a commodity. But it's not. It's not a commodity. Not, one tomato is not the same as every tomato, but the education to get that through. But as soon as you do value added, it becomes valuable in people's mind. So any kind of sauce, like all, just that packaging, everything, getting it into a bottle makes a world of difference. So that was one reason we went to value added. Another great tip we picked up along the way is nothing is really waste, especially true in a garden where you can compost, but also if you've got leftover peppers, tomatoes, they ought to be going into sauces, into jars, into something else that you can keep on your shelf. You shouldn't have to throw away good garden produce. So it's always good to have some backup thing for what you're growing. So yeah, our approach has just been to be flexible and creative and stubborn. And there's Tim. We've got high tunnels, that's our greenhouse. We saw a lot of seedlings in the spring. That worked for us because we did value added, we weren't competing to be the first up market with the lettuce or the first with the tomatoes. So if we were a little late planting our own garden, it was okay. So it really worked out for us to deal with growing all these seedlings for people, which kind of cuts into your May planting time a bit. I think, is this the end of it, Tim? Okay. Yep, that's our farm.
I'm going to ask Bill Teeple to come up because one of the things that's unique about Fairfield is our conscious understanding of Richard Florida's work of art, building the community, creating, enhancing a creative class. And Bill, I think, without any hyperbole, is the guy who has come in over the decades and built the arts community, built the arts culture, and I couldn't be happier to have him with us. So Bill Teeple, Icon Gallery, and many other things.
Well, thanks for having me come down and talk. It'll be hard for me to say anything in 5 minutes, but we'll see. And I'll be open for some questions if you have some questions. But I think we all know that in the last 20 years, Fairfield has become known as an art community. And it's not all my doing at all. It's that when many people came here from different parts of the country, when Maharishi bought Parsons College and created MIU and people came here, this might be happening in Santa Barbara had it not been that MIU came here. And then in '79, when Maharishi asked everyone who was at the Amherst course to come to move to Fairfield, and then we built the Golden Domes and all of that after that. So people that were associated with the Transcendental Meditation Program came here, and then we had to do things to stay here in the middle of nowhere and try to make a living. I and many other artists felt that we were missing something that was that we had left behind in the big cities. I come from the West Coast, but we in a fluid and natural way just began to create around us what we were missing, and I started teaching art. Let's see, it's a kind of a long story. I came here after Amherst, and my former wife and I started to show our art in little galleries that were in little homes, in our home and other places. Then I came and went for many years, and in 1998, I came back, and Lynn Marshall, who was an artist here, had been teaching drawing on the right-hand side of the brain, just in a public way to groups, and she was leaving town, and she asked if maybe I could take over her classes. So I had been doing the thing that was so nice, which was to stay here till November or December and leave, and then come to California and then come back in April. But when I inherited her classes and started teaching art, and then I expanded them into courses that had all 2D media, that was it. I haven't left since, except for a short vacation here and there. So I was I was here. And all of these things unfolded spontaneously. I didn't decide I was going to teach art. I just took over classes, started teaching. Those became very popular. Then I moved my teaching program up to above the square where Barry Ross's studio had been, on the 3rd floor of 51 East Broadway. And there were a few rooms up there that were empty, so I rented them too, and I started hanging some of my art up there. And then I thought, the great artists that are here in Fairfield aren't really showing in Fairfield, so people in Fairfield aren't realizing how substantial and how significant some of the art being made in Fairfield is, because these people would show in galleries in other parts of the country where they actually could sell some of this stuff. So I started hanging it up there, and then we started to invite people to openings, and my wife made casseroles and food, and we actually had quite a spread of all kinds of beverages and everything you could want, and we had these real big city kind of openings, and we were showing art that was big city quality. So suddenly I found myself running a gallery, and then we moved that down onto the square in 2007. So we've been doing the gallery about 21, 22 years now, and starting doing that led to Stacy Herlin Katakas thinking we should have all the art venues on the square opening every month for the first Friday of the month, and that was the beginning of the First Friday Art Walk, which became quite a huge event in Fairfield. It won the tourist event of the year not long after it started for Iowa. So, then we not only had artists beginning, and there were quite a few people were having, there were a lot of the youth, there were youth galleries, there were studio galleries. There was quite a lot of art activity going on, and that has grown and been kind of refined and developed in different ways. But we have what is now known as an art community all over, and even in these articles about Fairfield throughout the country have touted Fairfield as an artist colony. Now, not only were visual artists drawn here, but we had musicians and writers and poets and dancers, and every art form found a little niche in Fairfield. So we're really quite well known all over for being a very cultured community and lively cultural community. To the point that now people are coming here to live in Fairfield just because of the arts community, not only at first there was a lot of people coming because of TM, but there's people coming to Fairfield that don't even know anything about its beginnings with the Transcendental Meditation Program, but just want to come here for the Richard Florida idea that there's culture here. And I find personally that I prefer the combination of the small town ways with the big city culture. So that's what we've tried to do. The small town ways were here. The practical thinking of the Midwesterners, which I highly regard, put together with the kind of cutting edge and pushing the envelope qualities that artists bring to a community. Putting all that together has been a beautiful mix. And I used to go back to California, but after a while, I went for family reasons, but after a while, I was always glad to get back here. That's such so intense and so many people and so not rooted in nature. So this combination of a small scale that you can wrap your head around life a lot, but also with culture that is of the highest level, because we strive in art. I could go on and on, but we strive in art to try to create a coherent object in the world, which is not totally coherent. And we're all attempting to do that in the things we do. But art is specifically concerned with within the picture plane or within the shape of a sculpted object on a pedestal to, as well as possible, to quest for the achievement of something that contains coherence. So that's what the artist brings to the community. And the arts are really pretty much all about that. So it's kind of is a little kind of a actual formation of a piece of heaven on earth that the artist brings to that puts on the pedestal in the gallery, and people gather around it, and it uplifts them and heals them, and it's a valuable thing. I'm the one that we've been talking a lot about all the practical things that are needed to have a successful community, and we're trying to have that become sustainable. But I often talk about the arts because of this attempt to manifest a little piece of heaven on earth is such an important practical aspect of society.
Barb Stone, would you be able to come up and just say a couple minutes about what Southeast Iowa Food Hub is doing and the grants that are coming in and the unique things that you're doing supporting local farmers?
It was actually the inception of the Southeast Iowa Food Hub, which is a project under the SLC, was very much pulled together due to Bob's interests and Faith Reeves and others on our board in 2014, late 2014, I believe is when it began. And it was, I think it was in December of 2014, I was asked to be, through Jen Swinton, to be a farmer, something or other, I forget, on the board. And I had just was completing and winding down a 5-year project at the Marshy World Peace Vedic Organic Greenhouses, which are just north about 6 miles, 3 acres under roof that I managed for a time. And I grew up on farms and ranches in the Midwest and out west, and so it was deep in me. But I had no idea that I would be pulled into either of these projects very unexpectedly. But it was quite a blessing, and it has sent me on quite a trajectory that has been a delight from beginning to now. And I feel like the fruition is finally really exploding wide open right now. After the Food Hub stopped, or paused, I should say, aggregating and distributing food locally in Jefferson County for a few years, I'd been continuing to work in this space statewide and locally, staying in touch with farmers and advising some farmers, particularly when the farm that I used to manage transitioned to another owner and a new farm manager. He had been one of our former gardeners there, and he was our best gardener. And now this is his 4th season farming there, and it's been his best season so far. And I've been particularly focused on him, finding new markets for him. And then since last December, a huge opportunity came our way through this network of people that I work with, other Food Hub managers around the state of Iowa. There's a team of about, 10 to 20 of us, some from different universities as representatives, and some which have great acumen in grant writing. And some just Food Hub managers that do the day-to-day work of a Food Hub, which is aggregating and distributing food from local farms statewide. We wrote this grant together. It was for $2.7 million, and we just started this week. I was able to deliver. I was just telling Faith that I had orders for $18,000 in food, and we managed to completely pack the first truck that was operational, that had a cooler system in it, with $6,500 worth of food to 5 counties. Jefferson County, Wapello, Ottumwa, and then to the east, Burlington, we have 4 pantries there that we're serving, and then Washington County, yeah. So, and we're continuing to bring in, they're called community partners. So this grant is providing access to local food at no cost to people in need right now. And this is pandemic relief money coming under the Build Back Better. But something even more exciting around this is happening through the USDA, and that is through the big lessons that we learned from the COVID pandemic, is that our food systems are extremely fragile. And those of us who have worked in this area know that really our first level needs to be our own backyard garden or our own community garden. That is, to me, level 1 of food security. And number 2 is the hyper-local farm. Number 3 is the regional farms in our area statewide. And then when we have to rely on the incumbent food system, we do. But we want it. So my work is really building out this system and helping to strengthen the system through different methodologies. We're all getting really good at grant writing. We're really good at the pieces that need to be there. And then we have these 3 aces that are really good, like Leanne here, who wrote the grant for the Fairfield Garden Initiative, that really have that experience in getting those grants awarded. So we have another one, 2.2 million, coming in a few weeks that's going to overlap with this one, and that'll be free food to schools statewide. So I just wanted to say one more thing, and that is I see this as being very foundational. I just got an email a couple weeks ago, and then Leanne forwarded the same email to me. There is more money, another $400 million coming for the U.S. from the USDA to really more deeply establish these regional food systems. And I think there are 10 that they're going to fund. And I think Iowa has a really good shot, and that is going to build out infrastructure that we need for processing and things like that. So thank you.
Faith, to come up and talk about the Fairfield Garden Initiative. And this, again, it's the serendipity. You know, Bill, you had no idea you were going to become an art instructor. I made friends with Jeff Kearse at IEDA. Every year or two we get together for lunch, and said, Jeff, let's get to lunch. And he said, great, Bob, good timing. We've got this money coming in. We got $23 million, and we really want a project to happen in Fairfield. Well, I had just talked to this guy, Dr. David Fisher, who was going to anchor our program tonight, and toured his garden. And I said, well, Jeff, what do you think about home gardens? How about at-scale home gardens? He goes, yeah, sounds good. Do it. So that was in July, and we finally got it done that March, next March. So anyway, Faith, come up and tell us about it.
So the Fairfield Garden Initiative program, like Bob said, started bubbling up in last summer in July, and the community got together. There was a discussion, a brainstorming around how some of that money could be utilized in our community. This money is Community Block Development Grant money, and it's HUD money. The projects that are usually funded with this money are usually infrastructure projects, beautification projects, food projects happen, but it's usually focused around infrastructure, like working to, similar to the grant money that Barbara is working with, money to get food purchased in bulk into food hubs, into food banks. This was the first of its kind, really, the Fairfield Garden Initiative program. So a group of inspired community members got together. I do believe David was there. I wasn't there. I'm on the board, but I wasn't at this meeting. For some reason, I wasn't there. Some reason, I don't know. But the idea came around to, try to build this grant that would supply our local community, our home gardeners, with the support they need in order to have a successful growing season. And so Leanne Gluck, who was on our board, who is no longer here, she moved back to California. We miss you, Leanne. If you see this, please come back. We were graced with her diligence, her go-get-it attitude. She really wrote a beautiful grant, got us all coordinated in there. I was picked up to do the education aspect of the grant. I was going to do the educational workshops and the consulting. Wonderful. That's what I love. I've spent the last, 12 years of my life educating myself around soil health, microbial health, plant health, just really digging deep around what it means to grow healthy food that is medicine. This is where my passion is. And so I was brought in to do the education, loved it. And then I was all for, I was doing some of the admin work behind the scenes to help to get the grant coordinated, organized. We hired a wonderful program coordinator from the community. She was going to be amazing, but it ended up that she had family emergencies, couldn't fulfill with the position. So I
here I am. And so in April, I took on the position, and we were off and running, right? So the grant was written from July. We didn't get release of funds until April, and I don't know if you guys are gardeners, but in April, your garden should be ready. It should be already done. And so we had coordinated with Tiffany April Rains from Wild Spirits Farms to grow 3,000 plant starts to give away in late May. And so she started, before we even knew we got the grant, growing those plants. She, leap of faith. She just dove in, and that is Tiffany. She dove in, she committed, she grew all of these plants. We were able to coordinate and get over 3,000 plants, almost 3,500 plants out this spring to over 105 families or households. And so each family or household was able to get 30 free plant starts. So that's one aspect of the grant, free plant starts. We also have additional resources in the way of compost. That went out to all of the participants. And then we also have seeds, consulting, garden consultation, beyond like in-depth consulting, garden check-ins. We have mulch, and so we're building this as we go. This is not something that we have a rule book or a handbook to figure out. We're just saying, hey, what do you need? Let's find out what it is. So tool lending library, we're sourcing all of these inputs as we need them for our gardeners. It's an $85,000 grant. 29 of that is for the admin, for the program coordinator role. And then, we've got a very strict budget because it is HUD money, but we're being really, conservative and just trying to only purchase what we need as we need it. And we are, we're doing soil testing for our community participants. We are doing, again, in garden assistance. And then just, if you need help as a gardener, give me a call. I will either come and hang out with you in your garden, or we'll do a little FaceTime, or we'll do a little, chat about what it is that's going on in your garden. How can I assist? And yeah, this grant will run from June. Well, we got our release of funds April of 2022. It'll run through June of 2023. We'll have to finalize everything there for this grant. We would love to see this program continue. We are seeing wonderful feedback from the community, from those home gardeners who are participating, who are enjoying the support. And so we would love to see this program continue. So we are building resources in order to pursue additional funding for the program. We also have filmed so far 16 educational modules. We'll continue to film educational modules. These are listed on our website at gardenfairfield.com, and they are tutorials. How do you take that baby plant and get it into a weedy patch and have it live? How do you get yourself through a drought season and have food to harvest at the end? We'll do composting, we'll do seed saving and seed starting next spring. So we're just trying to walk gardeners at any level through the process of taking a seed to their plate, into preservation, and back to the soil.
Dr. David Fisher. And David actually is the father of the Fairfield Garden Initiative, because had I not visited David, who I've known for many years, known and enjoyed for many years, he started the Sustainable Living garden program at the university. He's a botanist. He's a potato genetics guy. You're a frog census guy, aren't you too? Yeah, frog. He was a frog census guy. No longer. Gave it up. And so he told me about what he was doing with his garden. So I went over to his garden, and it was just amazing. And he was explaining what he will explain to you. And so I shot a little video. So this was very much top of mind. So when I had a chance to talk with Jeff Geertz at IEDA, Iowa Economic Development Authority, this was really top of my mind. Because I said, yeah, home gardens don't seem like a big deal, but neither is a drop of water, but try an ocean wave, right? All a wave is just a bunch of drops of water. So home gardens, individual home gardens, well, they're a home garden. But you can scale this thing up, do something really, really spectacular. So this is what was actually in the back of my mind when I pitched Jeff on this. It's worked out better than I had hoped in terms of our program. But now we need to go beyond that into a system. And for that, I give you Dr. David Fisher.
So I'd had a garden for quite some time, been gardening since I was 12. I have a PhD in botany. I've taught sustainability, environmental science for many years. And I decided to see if I could live for 1 month off of my garden, just eating from the garden, which meant I had to become a vegetarian for a month, which I've never done. But anyway, I was able to do it, and I kept track of exactly how much I ate and exactly how much ground it took to grow it. And I said, well, if I can do that for 1 month, what would it take to do it for a year in terms of the amount of ground, the plot size? So I worked that all out. That was the initial one was in 2022. And then in 2021, last year, I grew out a 35 by 40 foot garden. So this is much too long to go into now. So Bob, I'm going to just flash most of these, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time on about 3 or 4 slides. So just go on to the next one. That's the garden of last year, 35 by 40 feet. It grew a year's supply of food, over 1,000 pounds of vegetables, just 35 by 40 feet. That's not even as big as the average floor space of the average home in the United States. So go on. And so just go on. So this is the slide I want you to really focus on. Believe it or not, it takes about 3.2 acres to feed one American. This is a very solid figure from a number of different sources. I like to just round it off to 3, but about 3 acres. My garden is 35 by 40 feet, which happens to be about 1% of that. Okay? So to feed one person for a year, my garden, 35 by 40 feet, or the industrial food system, it takes 3 acres, 100 times as much land. This absolutely shocked me, and when I present this to people, they say, it looks kind of interesting, but most people, they can't really absorb it. It's just too shocking. It's just too different from what we've been told all of our lives. Mighty tractors and all of that, and 42,000 items in the average supermarket, Hy-Vee here included. Okay, how could that not be efficient? So let's just go on. Okay, just to picture it a different way, to sort of give this idea a little bit of time to sort of sink into your awareness, because it's just so shocking. Okay? So if you turn it around, 3 acres of home gardens like mine, okay, feed 100 people. 3 acres of the industrial food system feeds just 1 person. It's unbelievable, but it's true. The numbers I've been through many times. Okay, it's absolutely, the numbers don't lie. Again, see, this is with the people. Okay, 3 acres of home gardens like mine for an average person feeds 100 people. 3 acres of the industrial food system feeds just 1 person. How can that be? Okay. Fortunately, I came across this graphic from the University of Missouri, their sustainability institute up there. And the reason it's the case is this graphic shows what happens to the food in our food system, starting at the far left here from the field all the way to the consumer's fork. Okay? As you go through that, various things drop out, okay, due to exports, due to long-term storage, due to industrial uses, and a whole number of things. So when you get to the far side, only 14% of the food that's originally produced by the industrial food system, only 14% of that gets to the consumer's fork. Okay? Now, this graphic was made back in 1995. Before, we had 40% of corn going to ethanol, 30% of soybeans going to biodiesel, and exports are also much greater now. So by the time you include those, it's down to about 9 or 10%. Okay? That's why the industrial food system is so incredibly less efficient than home garden. Next slide. Here's a home garden. It eliminates exports, imports, industrial uses, most waste, water, respiration, processing losses, and long-term storage. It's 1,500 miles from here to there. in the industrial food system. In your garden, it's a few feet. Can you begin to see now why home gardens are so incredibly much more efficient at feeding people than the industrial food system? It's just astonishing because we've been told the opposite of that all our lives. I was too. I used to teach it. I used to say, oh, the industrial food system is so incredibly efficient because of, all of the energy efficiencies. Oh, it's not. Okay, 70% of the cost of the industrial food is due to energy. Okay, so I did all this. I won't go through this, but it's not that I'm a super gardener. Okay, I had all kinds of things. All right. Home gardens won't duplicate the 85% of the American diet that is basically highly processed food. Next. This just goes over the energy, 8 times as much energy it takes to put the amount of energy that's in one bite of your food on average. And just more. I don't want to spend a lot of time. And so that efficiency is part of it, okay, just in terms of getting the food from the field to the fork. The other thing is externalities, and that is collateral damage that the industrial food system does of many kinds, and this just pictorially illustrates a few of them, that it doesn't pay for. So next. It just so happens over the last, about 5-10 years, most of it the last 5 years, there have been a number of very large studies, I call them mega studies, that have documented trillions of dollars in externalities to produce the food. So not only is it highly inefficient, it produces trillions of dollars in external collateral damage. So that's another inefficiency. It's looked at from a quite different viewpoint. So just go on. This is what you pay at the checkout counter at Hy-Vee is only about a third of the real cost of food. Okay? Just about a third. Okay, so just go on. There's many benefits to home food gardens. We won't go into that. Okay, so now this gets back to what Barbara Stone was talking about. Obviously, not everybody is going to run right out and start their own home garden. Okay? But a lot of people already do. 41% of all of the households in this country already have some form of a food garden. Okay? So let's just say we have a 3-tiered system, somewhat like Barbara talked about, anchored by home gardens. Suppose home gardens produce just 25 or 30% of our food. Okay? It doesn't have to be, any more than that to have an enormously beneficial effect on the country. The next level is what most of you heard about with the 3 or 4 different talks on the local food systems. That's Francis there. And then I put the third part of it as whatever is left of the industrial food system that we can make more sustainable. Right now it's like this. Most of our food is industrial. We don't know how much is home gardens. Okay? Nobody's ever measured it. And local farms, about 1% of our food supply comes from local farms. Who knows? Maybe in 20 years, it'll look something like that. Or maybe in 40 years, it'll look something like that. Who knows? Okay? So go to the next one. Fortunately, there are highly successful, grossly successful home garden food systems. Unfortunately, it's in probably the most unpopular country in the world right now, Russia. Okay? In 2008, about half of their food was produced in home food gardens without any support whatsoever from the Russian government. Okay? Nigeria, 50% of its food, of its vegetables, comes from home food gardens. And by the way, in Russia, 50% of the food production on just 3% of the land. Does that look a little bit like the original graphic I was showing you about 100 to 1? Okay? Very similar. Okay? And of course, we did the same thing, but just for a couple of years at the end of World War II. So it can scale up. This is a country of 146 million people. 73 million of them are being fed by home gardens. It's not just your little backyard pitiful thing that most people think it is. It can scale up. So that's why you heard the other food talks. That's the local scene. That's great. And yes, it can scale up. Okay. And it's already happening. Last slide. Okay. It's already happening. 41% of all households, sales of seed, gardening, and all those types of things going up. And there is enough lawn space to feed about 90% of the population if the lawns were turned into home gardens. It's astonishing. It is truly startling, astonishing, amazing. That's what I want to tell you.